Ladies and gentlemen, as we begin our services, if we can please kindly turn off all cell phones or electronic devices, or please place them on silent. Thank you.
Esainai el heharim, me'ayin yavo Ezri, Ezri me'im Adonai ose shamayim va'aretz. I lift my eyes to the mountains. What is the source of my help? My help comes from Adonai, the maker of heaven and earth. God will not let your foot give way. Your protector will not slumber. See, the protector of Israel neither slumbers nor sleeps. God is your guardian. God is your protection at your right hand. The sun will not strike you by day, nor the moon by night. God will guard you from all harm. God will guard your soul, your going and your coming, now and forever. This month on our Jewish calendar, this month of Adar, is said to be one of our most joyous, a month when our happiness is supposed to increase as we celebrate our festival of Purim beginning this evening. The story of the Jewish people overcoming great odds in a world that seemed to think that our people didn't belong, shouldn't live like everyone else was living, or were somehow less than. A story of bravery and courage. The heroes, simply people who lived in a way that was most true to themselves, people who lived genuinely, fully, and who cared deeply about others. And while this morning may be anything but joyful, the life that Susie lived, how she loved and cared for others, how she was loved and cared for by her family, and how she shared her heart and her soul so freely with others around her, and I'm told with those she just met, continues to inspire us to live our own lives more fully, without reservation and without fear of the judgment of others. And so we extend our deepest condolences to Susie's sisters, to Marilyn and George, to Joanne and Ron, to Susie's nephews and nieces, to her circle of friends, the community she created around her, and to her extended family as well. As I talked with Joanne and Marilyn the other day, you commented first and foremost that Susie was a happy person and lived a good life. Your mom was an advocate for her from the beginning, becoming a founding member of ARC, formerly known by its less than PC name as the Association for Retarded Citizens. And Susie attended a regular school and later worked at the Occupation Center of Essex County. Susie would take the bus to get to work, and I'm told there was a restaurant next to the bus stop, and her sisters commented how Susie had somehow figured out how to open an account there, as she was always able to get food. She would steal change out of their dad's change jar. As Joanne commented, Susie had an innate intelligence to get exactly what she wanted. She was able to cook pudding because she loved to eat pudding, even though she couldn't seem to cook anything else. Susie's work at the Occupation Center bolstered her self-esteem. She would twist the ties on bread packages, and then one day came home so excited when she received a promotion, as she was one of the workers who could count to 15, and therefore could also do the work of counting plastic spoons. The work gave her a sense of meaning, of value, and purpose. As Joanne commented, growing up with someone like Susie in your family teaches you a lot. And as Susie's nephew Sam posted on Instagram just a few days ago, and I quote, "Aunt Susie was full of light, kindness, love, and joy. A pure soul who liked to be around her family, eat good food, sing and play the piano, watch Disney movies, and nap on the couch. In today's terms, Aunt Susie would be described as having special needs, but she was always specially needed by us. Her warm heart, enduring endearing quirks, and tender presence will be deeply missed at every family holiday and event. We are all better for having known and loved her. Susie, I'm told, could not only play the piano, but could play the piano by ear. And every December, as Joanne would bring Susie to McCourt Shalom during our IHOC weeks, when we partnered with the Interfaith Homeless Outreach Council and hosted them in our synagogue, Susie would play and sing "Love Makes the World Go Round." As Joanne commented, it was those homeless black men who saw Susie as a person, who were so kind to her, who were the best to her. Susie was always ready and willing to give a hug, whether it was to family or strangers she would meet. And as Marilyn commented, always excited to introduce her sisters. She was incredibly affectionate towards everyone, and as Marilyn also shared, there wasn't a mean bone in her body, and she was most often cheerful. As Joanne added, it's truly a lesson to everyone about how to live. Even during her time in the hospital, Susie never complained. She loved to socialize, lived in the same group home for years, and it was there that she found a sense of community, friends, a longtime boyfriend, and a home where she felt most comfortable. While some may have seen Susie as quote-unquote limited in some respects, Susie lived life fully, joyfully, and lovingly. There's a reading in our prayer book that says, "Let us treasure the time we have and resolve to use it well, counting each moment precious, a chance to apprehend some truth, to experience some beauty, to conquer some evil, to relieve some suffering, to love and be loved, to achieve something of lasting worth. Help us, God, to fulfill the promise that is in each of us, and so to conduct ourselves that generations hence it will be true to say of us that the world is better because for a brief space they lived in it. As we know that is so true to say of Susie, we also say this morning, Zichronah livracha, may her memory always be for a blessing, and may the light she brought into this world continue to burn brightly through the legacy she leaves and the memories we hold tight to. If you will join me now in the words of Psalm 23. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He guideth me in straight paths for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou hast anointed my head with oil. My cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. We'll now hear from a few of Susie's family members and those that knew her at her group home, beginning with Tina, one of the shift supervisors of that group home.
Hello, everyone. I'm Tina, the shift supervisor at West Caldwell, where Susan resided. I've worked with Susan for 14 years, and I have to be honest, this is my first time working in this field, and I truly didn't know that you can love someone as much as I loved my consumers outside of my family. Susan, we nicknamed her my shadow, because I could not go far without Susan wanting to know where I was at, where I was going, how long I was going to be, and you know, why couldn't she attend with me? Susan was the sweetest. Like people say, she did not have a bad bone in her body. However, she did have a housemate named Juliana that she called her hassle-mate. And those two would bicker, and every now and again, Susan would call her blabbermouth, and they would go at it over a guy that passed away years before I got there. I was there, I've been there 14 years. This man passed away before my time, but Susan and Juliana kept that feud alive over water. And then came Charlie. Charlie and Susan then started that bicker again over Charlie. I don't know who actually he belonged to. I don't know if he was Susan's man or if he was Juliana's man, but he was both of their men at one point. Susan was just everything to me. She loved me so much. I loved her so much. She would request just lunch dates for she and I, and she would make sure it was just she and I. No one else, just you and I, Tina. And her favorite place was Olive Garden. She've Olive Gardened me out over the last 13 years. Tomorrow is actually her birthday. I planned a big old Olive Garden get-together for her. So we're still going to have that Olive Garden get-together tomorrow at the group home. The decorations is there. The food is getting picked up tomorrow. We're still going to party like it's, 1969. And I'm going to eat fettuccine Alfredo. I don't care for it, but it was Susan's favorite, so I'm going to enjoy it. I just want to say my condolences to the family, Joanne, to Marilyn, the whole family. You guys have been so special to me. You've spoiled me over the years. Your homes have been like a home of mine. Every time I came, you made sure I felt at home. I mean, from the bedrooms to the bathrooms to the deck, I just felt at home. And I would like to say thank you. I truly appreciate that. It means everything to me. Sometimes you overspoiled me. Me and Joanne would bicker back and forth on the phone. I'm telling her something, she's going off on me. But it's love. It's sisterly love. And I appreciate it very much. Just know that everybody at West Caldwell will miss Susan. We love Susan. I advocated for Susan to the best of my ability. I feel like I let her down. However, I did what I could. I did what I could for Susan. I did my best. I made sure her hair was colored. She would tell me, Tina, it's gray. So that means color it. I colored her hair. Once we lost contact with Michael at the mall, I went into beautician mode, and I always made sure that she looked good. She smelled good. I have on her favorite perfume today because she would tell me, Tina, you look good. So that's why I have on this outfit, a little flashy today, because she would say, Tina, you look good. Even when I didn't look good, she made me feel like it. One last thing. I cut my hair. I have alopecia. So I cut all my hair off. It was the hardest struggle of my life. I stood in the group home at the mirror, and I shaved it bald. I cried my eyes out. I tell you no lie. Susan came to me, and she hugged me. And she said, you look good. And although I didn't feel the best, because, hair for most people is just hair, is what it is. It's how it identifies them. But for me, it was like I lost a part of myself. But I felt good after Susan hugged me and told me how beautiful I looked. And I was able to rock that baldy. Now it's 13 years I've been rocking the baldy. I put my hair on today because, it's cold outside. But Susan made me feel loved, welcomed, appreciated, and I just like to say that we're going to miss her. From my family to yours, thank you for everything. Marilyn and Joanne, I will be in contact. Please know that, understand that, accept that this is not the end for us because you guys have been so good to me. Thank you, and I pray for everybody here. Thank you. Thank you so much.
We'll now call forward Marilyn.
This is going to sound very similar to what you've been hearing. Because my sister, well, I have so many memories of my sister Susie because I was there from the day she was born until the end of her life. These loving, detailed, illuminating memories would take too long to recount at this time. Talk to me later, and I'll tell you how we attended summer sleepaway camp for 2 months when she was only 5. The youngest camper there, and I was 8. This was a normal camp, but they agreed to take her. She was the darling of the camp. I could also tell you how I taught her to jump rope, or I could speak of her love of her favorite 33 RPM records. See the funny little bunnies? I'm Jeannie the record. And how she played them over and over and over at 75 RPMs to Joe's and my huge annoyance. One of my favorite recollections is the time she occasioned one of the funniest moments in my life. I mean, I laughed so hard I nearly got sick. It was the time, it was her birthday dinner. God, that was many years ago tomorrow, to think about it. At the Four Seasons in New York City, one of the fanciest places ever. And that reminds me of how much she loved to eat. Whenever I visit her, we went out to Epicessen up in Livingston, where she always ordered her usual chopped liver and potato salad, to name a few memories. One of my earliest memories was when I was 5 or 6 years old. Adults would ask me what I wanted to be when I grew up, and I would tell them that I wanted to be a brain surgeon so I could fix Susie's brain. Thinking of this now reminds me of a story written by Hawthorne about a girl who was born and grew to be incredibly beautiful inside and out. She was admired in her town by almost everyone. However, this girl had one minor flaw, a tiny birthmark on her cheek shaped like a hand. This mark was overlooked by everyone except her father, who was an alchemist, and he wanted to perfect her beauty. So he worked on elixirs until he invented one he thought would work. She drank it down at his command, and the mark slowly faded, and so did she. The elixir also extinguished her life. I read this in American Lit in college, and I think the consensus of opinion there with the English majors, I wasn't one, was that this hand represented the touch of God on her, and she was very, very beautiful, and this was the sign, how this came about. All her life, I think people regarded Susie as being majorly flawed. Her flaw was even categorized and named. And now that her time on earth is over, I look back on her life and realize that Susie was the perfect person. An example for us all to follow. Susie never had a bad word to say about anyone, even those who harmed her. She didn't have a violent bone in her body, as Tina mentioned, or the rabbi mentioned. She never gossiped. She looked at the world with childish wonder, even in old age. She adored being with people and socializing. She lovingly greeted strangers with hugs and was fiercely loyal to those she regarded as family, which was more than us, okay? Joey and me, my mother, my father. Susie could play the piano by ear, chords and all, and she would sing in a beautiful voice to the delight of anyone who heard her. Her favorite song was Love Makes the World Go Round. I feel she truly believed that. We used to harmonize when we sang the camp songs I taught her. When I grew nostalgic and wanted to sing those summer songs from my camp, she was the only one in my family who could sing them so satisfyingly with me. I'm going to miss that. Believe it or not, Susie was brave. For one of her birthdays, she wanted to go to Atlantic City. My mother, Joanne, Julie, and I, my daughter Julie, took her for a long weekend there. She was hooked on the slots. She loved the noise, the lights, the movement. She didn't know about winning. It was like an amusement machine. We decided all to go for massages at Blue Mercury as a special treat for Susie, who never had a massage. When we arrived, we were all given lockers and fluffy white robes and slippers to change into. Then we were ushered into the quiet relaxation room to wait to be called for our massages. As I remember it, I think Susie went first and maybe one of us also went at the same time. About 15 minutes later, we were stunned by this incredibly loud fire alarm and instructions to leave the building immediately without picking up any of our belongings. We all streamed out of the building onto the sidewalk and the fire trucks roared up. The firemen stormed into the building as the alarm was still blaring away. There were a crowd of people in white robes and slippers standing on the sidewalk, outside. We were all looking for each other, which was difficult because everyone looked alike. After a few minutes, Joanne and Julie and I located each other, and we continued looking for Susie, but she was nowhere to be found in the crowd. We were growing frantic and talking to the authorities when a fireman came out with Susie. We went running up to claim her and thank this fireman. Oh, we were so thankful for finding her. And he told us she wasn't lost. She would not leave that building until he came and saved Joanne, me, and Julie. And he had to convince her that we were out of the building. Then she came out. Susie didn't need to be fixed. Her flaw made her noticeable, which makes me think of that hand on the daughter of that beautiful woman in the hawthorn tale. I read a beautiful tribute to Susie that my nephew Sam posted on Facebook the day after I wrote this in rough draft form. In it, he said essentially the same things about her that I'm saying now, and so did the rabbi. He, for one, noticed that, Mark, just the way I have finally come to make sense of what I noticed. Perhaps Susie was sent to us the way she was, so we would all notice her character as an example of what we should all emulate. To be loving, open, welcoming, kind, and peaceable. To thoroughly enjoy the small moments as much as the big ones. To look at the world with what I will call child vision glasses. To live in the moment. Ultimately, to be the essence of goodness. To be good. If we were all that way, it would be heaven on earth. When we told Susie that her mother had died, she looked at Joe and me and the people from her home who were present and said, trustingly, now you're going to take care of me. I will say we are still trying our best to do that, Susie. We love you, Susie, and we'll miss you very, very, very much.
We'll now call up Susie's other sister, Joanne.
Hi, everybody. I'm going to have to wing this a little bit because a lot has been said that I don't want to repeat, so you have to bear with me. Growing up with Susie during the 1950s wasn't always easy. We called her Udi Kabooty because apparently I just found this out because Susie couldn't say her name when she was a kid. She called Susie, so they called her Udi. And the Kabooty just, well, why not, right? Kabooty, right? Udi Kabooty. At some point, my big sister became my little sister because even though she was 5 years older, I realized, I guess as a child, that she was younger than me in lots of ways. Back then, the word for Susie's condition was retarded. I mean, now I still say it because that's how I grew up, and people go, oh, how can you say that? And I go, well, because I can, because that's what I knew. It's funny that, you know, special needs, developmentally delayed, cognitively impaired, those weren't, like, invented yet. I have to say, and I thought about this, that it was really Howard Stern, believe it or not, who, like, sort of mainstreamed retarded people when he had in his whack pack Wendy the retard and I think John the retard. I don't remember, but I would listen to his show, which is, kind of offensive most of the time, but I have to say, he treated those people, he made fun of them, but just like he made fun of everybody. They were people. I mean, he made them like he was treating them just like anybody else. And so when people said to me, like, were you nice to your sister when she was growing up? I say, she was my sister. We fought, we did stuff like that. Growing up, people weren't very understanding because Susie looked different, she talked different. People made fun of her. Schoolmates made fun of her sometimes. I sometimes was embarrassed. I'm not proud to say that. It took me a long time to realize, like, that I should have been angry at them. They thought, she took the little bus, that little orange bus. They thought she was stupid. What I didn't realize at the time was Susie wasn't stupid. They were ignorant. And some of us here have special needs sisters and relatives, and we know that now. Well, I thought Susie didn't have a mean bone in her body until Tina just told me the story about Charlie and Julietta. I had no idea that Susie was having a fight over a guy. Okay, so with that only time, I had no idea about that. She really, truly was an angel, she just was. I mean, and all the things everybody said, I don't know how many of you have been hugged by Susie. How many people here have had a hug by look at that, right? I mean, she hugged the mailman. She hugged the sales lady. She'd always go, sometimes she called me her mother, Joanne. Sometimes she called me my sister, Mara. She always called me sometimes by the wrong name, but she always wanted to introduce me. And she always said to everybody, you look nice. Everybody, she would say, you look nice. And she even loved dogs, and she would hug a growling dog because she loved dogs. I mean, she loved pets. The one thing that Marilyn told the story about, she didn't tell you what was so funny about Susie. At the Four Seasons restaurant, they were making duck, what was it? Duck à l'orange, which is with alcohol, and you flame it. And we're in this fancy restaurant in the middle of the room, and they light a fire on this stuff, and it goes woof up, and Susie screams, fire! I mean, in the middle of a very Saturday night in a very fancy restaurant, and like everybody thought, oh my God. Yeah, that was what made her laugh. Okay, it was funny. Susie for somebody who had disability, she certainly knew how to get what she wanted. When she'd come to stay at our house, Susie was always cold. So she'd always show up with a hat and gloves, and it could be summer, right? I mean, you guys know, right? And she always had to be bundled up. We'd give her a blanket, and we'd go to bed. There'd be no blankets left. She'd taken them all and put them on top of her. She could have like 18 blankets on top of her. When she stayed with us for holidays, her big priorities are, what are we going to do tomorrow, and what are we going to eat? She loved to go out to dinner, and it was just, it was just funny, like how she'd go to a Chinese restaurant, she'd open the menu. Susie couldn't read, but somehow she knew on that menu where was a chicken chow mein, which she got from my mother, God only knows, because and lo mein. She could point the pictures, I don't know, but she knew. I mean, she knew exactly what she wanted. Her favorite lunch, cottage cheese and sour cream mixed together. Loved it. I brought it to the hospital for her, along with chopped liver and potato salad. That was the thing she last ate on her last day. She ate it all. She really, and we know what the other, one of my last outings with her, we took her to see Dune 2. And Susie didn't have her new hearing aids yet, and I'm thinking, well, she'd love to just go to movies, but I didn't know if she understood it. And she's sitting in the recliner seat with a bucket of popcorn and a soda, and she loved it. She just loved that movie. Maybe because it's loud, it's bang, bang, but she just had such a great time. We were like, because we're looking at her, I'm hating it, she's loving it. Susie became a resident in her group home for over 40 years. I think the first one was in Montclair, and then she moved to the one in West Caldwell. I don't remember how long ago it was. At one time, we considered moving her down closer to one of us, Marilyn, or to my house. And then we realized that would just be convenient for us, but not good for Susie. That was her home. That is her other family. And I can't tell, she loved everybody there. She loved the residents, she loved the staff. I can't tell you, all of you, I think there's Felicia, Tina, who spoke, who so lovingly, Grace, Hope, I hope I'm not missing anybody, but these, did I miss anybody? And Cynthia, where are you? There you are. Yeah, you're here. And Cynthia, like how much, like when you said you didn't do enough for, oh my God, that was that's not true. I mean, this was her family. You're as much her family as we're her family. It's not a thank, you don't get a lot of thanks. I know that. I mean, it certainly couldn't have gone into it to get rich. We know it's a calling. We're just, I know it just meant so much to us. Some of you have been there a long time, years. And we just so appreciate it. Susie's birthday was tomorrow, as Marilyn said. She would have been 79. It seems like, that's pretty good old age. She had a good life, but it seemed too short, to be honest with you. We weren't really ready to lose her, but this is how it happened. She was truly loved, and we're going to miss her very, very much forever. Thanks.
Thank you for sharing all of those memories, truly those life lessons. In the rising of the sun and in its going down, we remember her. In the blowing of the wind and in the chill of winter, we remember her. In the opening of buds and in the rebirth of spring, we remember her. In the rustling of leaves and in the beauty of autumn, we remember her. In the beginning of the year and when it ends, we remember her. When we are weary and in need of strength, we remember her. When we are lost and sick at heart, we remember her. When we have joys we yearn to share, we remember her. So long as we live, she too shall live, for she is now a part of us as we remember her. I invite you to please rise for our memorial prayer of El Malei Rachamim. El Malei Rachamim, Shochen Bamromim, Chamtzei Menucha Nechona Tachat Kanfei Chashchina, Im Kedoshim Utehorim Kezohar Harakia Mazhirim, Et Nishmat Suzi Shel Halcha Leolama, Baal Harachamim Yastirecha, Beseter Kenafav Leolamim, V'yitzror Bitzror HaChayim Et Nishmatach, Adonai hu nachalatach, v'tanuach b'shalom al mishkava, v'nomar, Amen. Compassionate God, eternal Spirit of the universe, grant perfect rest in your sheltering presence to Susie who has entered eternity. O God of mercy, let her find refuge in your eternal presence and in the shadow of your wings. Let her soul always be bound up in the bonds of everlasting life. God is her inheritance. May she now rest in peace. And together we say, Amen. Please be seated. Interment will follow our chapel service this morning at Beth Israel Cemetery in Woodbridge. Susie's family will then be gathering for memorial prayers and receiving visits of comfort tonight, beginning at 7 p.m. at Joanne and Ron's home, 2104 Magnolia Lane in Lafayette Hill, Pennsylvania. Contributions in memory of Susie can be made to the ARC, A-R-C, of Essex County.